It is not the healthy who need a doctor, but the sick. In Matthew 9:9-13, Jesus had dared to go to a man's home who back then was considered such a sinner that he was beyond redemption. If that wasn't scandalous enough, however, the man had invited all of his friends of similar ill repute. It would sort of be like today if Jesus went to the home of a white supremacist who had also invited all of his friends to hear Jesus. To the religious leaders who were so full of hatred and contempt for such people, so full of their own moral superiority over such people, they attacked Jesus harshly. To them, it was guilt by association. For Jesus even to set foot inside that house, in their minds, meant that he was really no different from those inside. And it was then that Jesus uttered that famous phrase, "It is not the healthy who need a doctor, but the sick." In this Thursday morning Bible brief, I want us to look together at these three things: how God loves everyone, how the self-righteous hate the very fact that God loves everyone, and who would Jesus apply that saying to today? Point number one, God loves everyone. The sinner in question was a man by the name of Matthew. In other words, he was a gospel writer himself. The sinner who was once considered unredeemable, a spiritual lost cause, a spiritual write-off, ended up becoming one of the 4 gospel writers and one of the 12 disciples. So why had Matthew been considered such a spiritual outlaw back then? Well, his profession had been that of a tax collector. In other words, he worked for the oppressors, the Roman army who occupied Israel at that time, who inflicted heavy taxes upon the Jewish people. And if that wasn't bad enough, the tax collectors would often overcharge their already overtaxed countrymen and became rich in the process. They did that because they knew they had the backing of the Roman army. Very loathsome people indeed, and yet not beyond God's love and redemption. Point number 2, how the self-righteous hate the fact that God loves everyone. When reading the Old Testament, it's self-evident that the religious leaders back in those days held little regard in keeping to the laws of God. But when we fast forward to the New Testament, to the times of Jesus, we see this radical shift. You could almost say that the pendulum had swung too far the other way. The religious leaders had become fanatical in keeping to the letter of the law, and they clearly saw themselves as way more morally superior to those who did not. And yet by doing that, they missed the whole point of the spirit of the law. The spirit of the law wasn't to demonstrate that there were some who were way more righteous than everyone else, but rather it was to demonstrate that everyone is equally lost in the big scheme of things, that all are sinful in need of redemption, that all are spiritually sick in need of a spiritual doctor. And Matthew, he recognized Jesus to be that doctor, while the religious leaders did not. And quickly, point number 3. Who would Jesus quote that saying to today? Well, let me put it this way. Suppose a well-known evangelical leader, like say John Piper or Timothy Keller, spoke at a Klan rally because its members genuinely wanted to hear the gospel. Imagine the uproar, the demands that their books be taken off of the Christian bookshelves, that they be forever banned from all Christian media. And yet that, my friends, is the radicalness of the gospel. God loves everyone because everyone is spiritually sick in his sight and in need of his spiritual healing. Matthew, he recognized that fact. Do you?